Hi, my name is Laura Ann Moore and I will be talking to you about buy now, pay later schemes in partnership with Zopa and their podcast with the Money Medics. Question number one is, what is buy now, pay later? Buy now, pay later is a form of credit payment that allows you to buy goods and services now and pay back later at an agreed date. So let's just say you've gone shopping and you get to the checkout. Instead of you paying for those goods and services at the checkout, the buy now, pay later provider will pay for the whole bill on your behalf so that you don't have to pay anything upfront to the retailer. You then make an agreement with the buy now, pay later provider to either delay the payment and pay back the whole amount at a later date, or to split the cost of the total bill down into smaller instalments and you pay it back over an extended period of time. Now, buy now, pay later has been around for a long time, but they were usually an option with catalogues and mail order companies, but more recently they've been picked up by online retailers, especially in the fashion industry, and they're now available to customers both online and in store, and they come in a range of formats. Question number two is, how do buy now, pay later schemes work? With buy now, pay later, you usually have the option to either delay the full payment to a later agreed date, or to split that cost over a period of time by dividing the amount into smaller instalments. Now, typically the agreements are interest-free, which means if you pay on time and you pay within the agreed time frame, then you can avoid paying late fees, avoid being charged any extra interest, and it means you'll only have to repay the total amount of what the original bill was. It is important to make sure that you do not spend more than what you can actually afford, because even though you're not paying anything up front, you will always have to pay back anything that you borrow. One option is pay later. Now, this option usually requires no upfront payment, and then you agree to pay back the full amount at a later date, for example, 14 days or 30 days. And you're usually reminded by the provider to make payment on time. So for example, let's say you want to buy a pair of trainers that are £60. Instead of paying the £60 up front, you pay nothing at all up front, and then you have up to 30 days to pay back the full £60. Another option is pay in instalments. This option offers you the chance to split the total amount of the bill down into 3 or 4 smaller instalments that make up the total amount of the bill. Usually you make the first small instalment up front, then the remaining instalments are taken periodically over a few weeks or months on set dates. Now, you agree to the terms and conditions of the provider, and they would take the money from your bank account on those set dates like a standing order until the full balance is paid off. So for example, let's say you wanted to buy those £60 trainers. That £60 could be split down into 3 chunks of £20. You'd pay the first £20 up front. 2 weeks later, you pay another £20, and then another 2 weeks later, you pay the remaining £20 until the full balance was cleared. At the checkout, when you're offered these options, the buy now, pay later providers will do a soft credit check where they will verify your home address, your bank details, and your date of birth before you're allowed to proceed. A soft credit check will not affect your credit score because it is not visible to other lenders, it's only visible to you. With this option, the risk to you is taking on more debt that you can afford to pay back, because a soft credit check does not look at your affordability. It only verifies details about who you are. And having small pots of debt with multiple different buy now, pay later providers can quickly spiral out of control. Another option is pay on finance. Now, this option will allow you to spread the cost of a purchase, but over a longer period of time, say for example 6 months. But you agree a formal plan, and that usually includes interest added to the total amount that you pay back. This option will always include a hard credit search, which is a more in-depth check on your credit report and your credit history. Now, with this finance option, you run the risk of being rejected and of the hard search being visible on your credit file, which can impact your score negatively. So those are the 3 main ways in which you can use buy now, pay later. Pay later, pay in instalments, and pay on finance. Question number 3. Does buy now, pay later affect my credit score, and what happens if I miss a payment? In short, the answer to this question is yes. Buy now, pay later services are a form of credit and can affect your score negatively if you don't pay back the debt in line with the agreement. And as discussed in a previous video, you do run the risk of being rejected and also of having a hard search visible on your credit file, which can impact your score negatively. Now, if you are accepted and you use buy now, pay later responsibly, it should not impact your score. But whilst the buy now, pay later providers have stated that using their services shouldn't affect your score, there have been multiple accounts from people who have been in a position where using the services has had an impact. So that is something to be aware of. So let's talk about what happens if you miss a payment. If you miss a payment because you've either forgotten or you didn't have enough money in your bank account, you're at risk of 3 things. Firstly, you're at risk of being charged late fees. Not all of the providers charge late fees, but for the ones that do, the fees are really high and it can make the total amount of what you pay back way more expensive. Secondly, you run the risk of being reported to a credit reference agency, and this will show up on your credit file and can impact your score negatively. And thirdly, you run the risk of having your debt passed over to a debt collection agency. So those are the 3 things to be aware of if you miss a payment. Question number 4 is, what should I be aware of when using buy now, pay later? Number 1 is do not borrow more than what you can afford to pay back. Whilst using buy now, pay later services can feel really tempting because you're able to get goods and services without paying for anything upfront, you should always make sure you're only spending what you can actually afford to pay back, because you do always have to pay back whatever you borrow. Number 2 is that debt can stack up really quickly. So if you're using multiple different buy now, pay later providers across different retailers, it can be really hard to keep a track of everything. And that can quickly become unmanageable. So what you need to do is make sure that you're keeping record of when your payments are due so that you're not missing any payments, but also of what your total amount of debt is across all of the providers so that you're aware of what the total amount is and of how much you owe back. Number 3 is that buy now, pay later products are unregulated. If you apply for any other form of credit, these financial providers and their services are regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority, the FCA, which means the lenders are required to be transparent about what you're signing up to and what the consequences are of non-payment. But currently, with buy now, pay later services, this information is not very clear at the point of purchase and it can be really misleading. However, due to recent campaigning, the FCA are going to be introducing some new rules so that buy now, pay later providers have to offer more transparency around what customers are signing up to. They have to tell their customers when the 0% period is nearly over, and also to stop any providers backdating interest charges. Number 4 is that you are not covered by Section 75 of the Consumer Act. Now, Section 75 states that if you as a consumer buy any goods or services over the value of £100, your credit card provider must protect you for any issues, for example, faulty goods or the product not turning up. However, if there is a third-party payment provider involved, for example, using a buy now, pay later service, then these same rights do not stand and you have less protection over your purchase. And number 5 is that this is a form of credit and it can affect your credit score. As explained in a previous video, you do run the risk of your credit score being impacted negatively if you are rejected or if you miss a payment or pay late. And other lenders are able to see this information on your credit file and they might think twice about lending you any money in the future. So they're the top 5 things to be aware of when you're thinking about using buy now, pay later services. Question number 5 is, what are the alternatives to using buy now, pay later? Whilst buy now, pay later products can feel tempting because they feel like a quick and easy way to pay for things, make sure you're aware of how you're spending your money and the consequences of using these services. The best alternative to buy now, pay later, which is a form of debt, would be to pay in cash or on your debit card for the total amount if you're able to. And before making a purchase, you can just ask yourself, if buy now, pay later was not an option at the checkout, would I still be able to afford this total payment? And if the answer is no, then that is an indication that you are not able to afford these goods or services at this moment in time right now. So the best thing to do is to stop, wait, save up, and then pay for the item or the services in cash or on your debit card. when you do have the funds available. Or you can pay on a credit card and then you make sure that you pay back in full the next month so that you don't pay any interest. Practicing mindful spending is really important and is a great way to become aware of how you're spending your money, and it will help you live within your means and stay away from unmanageable debt. And to practice mindful spending, you can ask yourself questions such as, can I afford this item right now? Do I really need this item? And am I making this purchase to cope emotionally? And then what you can do is wait 24 to 48 hours before making that purchase, which will help you stop making impulse purchases that you might regret later down the line. Now, if you do need to buy those goods or services and that they're essential and you don't actually have the funds available in cash right now, and taking out credit is your only option, the thing to ask yourself is there a better form of credit that I can take out right now? For example, a 0% credit card might be a more cost-effective and safe way to pay for this essential item. If you are finding yourself with debt issues and struggling to manage a loan, please know that there is help available, and you can get in touch with Citizens Advice or Step Change, who are a debt charity, and they're able to offer you free and helpful advice and support.